I miss the grind. And I'm still grinding, but in a very different way. You know, the grind isn't helping my physical health. Now the grind is benefiting other people and their academics and their mental health. And so now the grind isn't as much about me, but my grind is now about other people.
Hello and welcome back to The Next Act. My name is Keaton Hall, your host, with my co-host Matthew Roop. Today's unofficial sponsor is Last Minute Christmas Shopping. Whether it's Jeff Bezos and Amazon Prime coming up clutch, or trying to brave going out in person to malls where the rest of America is trying to get their last minute Christmas shopping done. It's something we try to avoid every single year. It inevitably still comes around to us. Matthew, you want to do the honors of introducing our special guest today?
Absolutely. I would love nothing more. Today we have a special guest, close to me as a potential, here in 6 months, it's going to be a future in-law. So super excited to have Kelsey Eichenauer on the podcast. Very, accomplished athlete in her time. She was a 4-year member of the Valparaiso golf team. But before that, she was a 4-time regional qualifier for golf in high school. She was a 4-year tennis sectional champ as well, and plenty of individual accolades to go along with that, such as academic all-state. And then by the time she finished her career at Valparaiso, she was awarded the top of class award for senior athletes. So we're very excited to have Kelsey on the podcast to kind of, explain and dive into kind of her process and her journey of how she ended up where she is. Welcome.
Kelsey, welcome.
Thank you.
So, Kelsey, when Matthew sent me over your list of accomplishments, I had no idea that we'd be in the presence of such a winner. And I know, it's tough. You got 4 years of a lot of things in high school and in college. Like, that's from start to finish. That's going with the big dogs right from the jump, and then being able to hang with them and improve from the start. So obviously you played multiple sports growing up and had a lot of success in tennis along with golf. What about the sport of golf made you love it and want to pursue that at the next level as opposed to something like tennis?
Golf, first off, really intrigued me. My grandpa taught me to play when I was in 6th grade. And, there's always just been this really meticulous skill required for golf. And it's so frustrating because every millimeter counts. And that's something that really not only intrigued me, but frustrated me to continue to keep perfecting my art. And, I kind of got hooked. And as Matthew has gotten to learn recently, it's kind of addicting.
It is addicting, frustrating, all the above.
Clearly speaks to the mindset you had of loving to be challenged and finding ways to overcome it, because in our experience, I'm sure I can speak for Matthew on this, something that we saw as a challenge, if we could overcome that and you get better at it, you enjoy things you get good at. And so the more things you can get good at, even if it's harder at the start, especially with something like golf, where not a college golfer, golf maybe a couple times a quarter, there's the one shot that keeps you coming back, but then the rest of the 18 holes are like, this is unbelievably frustrating.
Exactly.
Yeah, that last shot always happens on like the 18th hole too, so you leave with a good feeling. But Then if you look back on the rest of your rounds, you're like, I didn't even play that well. You're exactly right. I know, with your dad being a high school tennis coach, older brother, older sister, both being collegiate tennis players, did that play a factor at all into picking golf? Did you want to be different, or was it just the pure love of golf? Because I know that can kind of have a double-edged sword, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a really good question. Actually, it first led to me wanting to follow in their footsteps, and also kind of try and live up to that, just like I did in high school. But upon some good conversations with some really awesome mentors, I realized that I didn't have to take that same path and that I could kind of pave my own way, and prove myself and make a name for myself somewhere new. And while my mom was not super excited about me going to school farther away, I knew that was what was best for me.
it's very attractive to want to uphold like a family following the footsteps there, but it's also really cool that you were able to see that you could create your own path and still maintain a high level of doing it at the same time. Uh, so you were taught and kind of got hooked in sixth grade. It's a
Hmm.
long time between sixth grade and through the end of college. How much of your identity did you feel like was tied to the game of golf at that point?
Right. I truly think right at eighth grade is when I kind of had to choose what two sports I was really going to hone in on. And from that point, 50% of Kelsey was tennis and 50% of Kelsey was golf. And while, the academics was the foundation to all of that,
Hmm.
I played tennis in the winter that led up to the spring. And then I played golf in the summer that led up to the fall season. And that was just a cycle for the next 4 years. And then it turned into just sticking with golf. And that was full year round, which was really intense and frustrating, but overall still just addicting because I wanted to fine tune all of the skills needed to fill out a whole round of golf.
There's like a hot topic right now on when you should start to specialize in sports, if at all, right? Are there things that you took from tennis that translate to your golf game?
Mental for sure,
Mm.
mental game. Because even if you're out there with one partner, if you're playing doubles in tennis, you still it's partially 50% you, and if you're slacking on your part, then you've got to figure out a way to pick yourself back up. And in singles and tennis, you're all on your own. And so if you're not pulling your own weight, then you got to figure it out pretty quick, or else you're going down. So kind of the same thing with golf. Like you're out there alone, and sometimes your coach will come see you every other hour, but like sometimes there would be rounds where I would see my coach once in an 18 holes, and once or twice in a 36 hole day. And so I had to pick myself up. I had to dig deep and find that grit and figure it out, or else I was gonna drown.
I've never been a part of a golf tournament, but I know I have some friends that have been. And golfing with a couple friends, you're out there for such a long time doing 18 holes. If you're by yourself, that's a lot of time in your own head, in your own thoughts, having to adjust on the fly and take whatever shot you just hit and have feedback and be able to adjust on the fly like that. So, sounds like a lot of mental toughness was built out on the course, kind of being on your own and having to adjust like that.
Right.
So, as far as yourself as a student athlete, as a golfer, and even as a tennis player too, but how would you describe yourself in terms of like who people kind of knew you as a golfer?
I was kind of the one that was always going to come in with a consistent score.
Mm.
Everyone always knew I would be within a couple strokes every single time. I was the consistent scorer. My freshman and sophomore year of high school, I was consistently middle, but I would never really bomb around, and I'd never really come in like even par. And that same thing kind of held true, just a couple strokes lower, my junior and senior year of high school. I was never really one to really shoot super low, but I was never one to ever, ever, ever bomb around. It was always really solidly within a couple strokes. Um, I was kind of the hothead one in a little bit of a way. I I was really hard on myself, and I would get frustrated really quickly. Never snapped a club, but
That's good.
I definitely was hard on myself, and I always had a certain number that I knew I wanted to come in with, and if I didn't come in with that number, it was some tears sometimes.
Hmm.
But that quickly, I knew in college I couldn't do that anymore, so quickly cleaned that up before I went on to college.
Yeah, so your transition into college was probably, something like you hadn't experienced before, right? Hitting a new level. You didn't see too much tournament time, your first year or so. After, having such a good career in high school, was that a tough transition for you? It's probably the first time in your career that you've never, been the top dog, per se.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I definitely I knew what I was getting into. I knew that I wasn't going to be a small fish, a big fish in a small pond like I was in high school. I knew that it was going to be more like a medium pond. I was going to be a small fish, and
Mm-hmm.
I was going to have to work my way to the top. What I didn't account for was just how much work it was going to take.
Mm.
Golf and tennis, you don't lift. Guess what? College golf, you lift 2 to 3 times a week at 6 a.m. And
Mm-hmm.
that was not something I really accounted for. And so my body really, really was put to the test, and also my mental state was put to the test, and I really had to figure out my time management quickly, and also academically I had to figure out how to study, because same kind of a thing. I never really had to study because I could figure out high school, but now I have harder classes. Now I have a harder time getting to the top in my sport. And so that was really hard to kind of figure out. And just as I was starting to figure out my freshman year, that's when COVID hit.
Mm.
And so I then felt like I just kind of bumped right back down to the bottom of the ladder again. And that was a whole ordeal as well.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. I know in terms of adjusting, that's one of the biggest things from high school to college. Even if you're really good at your sport, you have a lot of things that are done for you. And then once you step on campus, you're on your own. You have a lot of some resources that the team has in place and the school has in place, but you're the one that has to actually put it all together and actually go do the work. So from that, from what you just described, you had to make sure you were really disciplined with your time. What does a D1 golf athlete's schedule look like on a normal day, like in season?
Oh, good gravy. Uh, well, first off, you're given 20 hours. Your coach is given 20 hours a week.
Mm.
And when I say they use every minute of that 20 hours, and you are expected to put in work outside of practice as well, and come early, stay late. And I don't think a lot of D1 athletes really realize that when they first come in, and I also didn't. So learning that quickly was probably one of my keys to success, and earning my coach's trust. And still got to study in there somewhere. Got to sleep. Got to feed yourself right. And those 6 a.m. workouts, waking up early, really catches up to you. And I actually got sick quite a bit my first semester because I wasn't getting enough sleep. I was tired all the time. When you're entering college, you're trying to figure out yourself out socially as well.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to see, do I fit in with the athletes? Do I fit in with the non-athletes? And the non-athletes are staying up until 2 a.m., but then you have workouts the next morning.
Yep.
So you're trying to figure out where you fit in, and how you're supposed to, succeed in college.
Yeah, absolutely. But obviously, over the course of your 4 years, you must have figured something out, because you dropped around 7 strokes from off your average score from the time you went. You started at Valpo to the time you left. So, kind of looking back on your career, first off, how good does that feel?
Really great, because I actually didn't know that stat, so that's really cool to hear.
Yeah, our research team does some good work every once in a while. So,
Okay, good,
yeah,
good.
they figured
They
that
got
one
some good
out.
sources.
Yeah, absolutely. But what were some things that you think you did that helped to make such a big improvement? Was it a mental state? Was it physical stuff? Was it all of the above? What were some big steps that you kind of took to that led to improvement?
Two things for sure. Number one, my mental state. I really learned how to harness my brain. I did a series of reading some books. There's a really good book it's called Chatter. I'm not going to be able to remember the author, but kind of talking about like your brain and your subconscious voice, and the things that it's saying to you. And it's really more of like a how to deal with yourself in life, but I kind of tried to frame it from like a, when I'm hearing these things in my head while I'm playing, how do I harness them for good rather than let it drag me down? So, reading some books, really got into meditating, harnessing my own inner voice. That was really helpful. And then also just, man, when coach gave me a drill, I did it until I was done. And
Mm.
often those drills would take the entire practice. And a lot of people would, quit when coach said, okay, time's up, you're done with practice, you can go. No, I stayed until it was done because, I knew that leaving was what I wanted to do, but staying to get it done is what, I was going to have to do if I wanted to stay at this level and succeed at this level.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like something that Matthew and I talked about in his initial episode is the difference between competing and working hard. And the difference that we talked about was that intentionality with the things that you did, because you and your teammates had a lot of the same workouts, if not the same drills and workouts, but you staying there and getting it drilled in until you couldn't get it wrong as opposed to until you got it right a few times. I mean, that's no surprise that you're able to drop so many strokes because you had that intentionality and that specific goal. You got so much more out of those drills in that practice during that same amount of time, and obviously a little bit more time if you're staying afterward and putting that extra work in. But it's just a difference that is applicable, obviously, in your first act, but also in your next act later that we'll talk about. But that's awesome. So your career, like anyone's, had its ups and downs. If you had the opportunity, what, if anything, would you go back and change about it?
Ooh, what would I change?
And it's okay if you wouldn't. I mean, it's great if you wouldn't, but it's just a
I would
curious
give myself
question.
more grace, if anything, because I really beat myself up the first year and a half. I didn't even see a tournament, didn't even like sniff a tournament. And that really, really took a toll on me. And I for so long I was trying to figure out why. Was it me? Was it something that I did to other teammates or my coach? And ultimately, I think it just came down to just, between COVID, between being a freshman, between, like I played at a teeny tiny it was 2A, I think Manchester's 2A. Um, Between playing at a teeny tiny high school and then trying to compete at the same level, like I just it wasn't going to happen my freshman year, but ultimately I think it was for the best. And later my coach explained it to me that she kind of did it for a reason, because she knew that because I was so hard on myself, if I played in a tournament my freshman year and I failed, I wasn't going to recover from that. And so in a way, she was kind of protecting me, and I do owe a lot of my success to her because um, she believed in me and she saw things like two steps ahead before I could. And ultimately, we developed an incredible relationship, and I'm so thankful to her. And it's also was really, really neat having a female coach as a female athlete, because she understood the exact same things that we were going through. She also played at a Division I program, and she succeeded, and now she's at a coach and she's trying to build a program. And I think that we all built a deeper connection there because we could understand each other a little bit better.
It's crazy. Those collegiate coaches know what they're talking about. They're all really smart.
Yeah, I know, right? Crazy.
I think that's the majority of the stuff we had for your first act. Are there any other topics that you want to hit, or anything else that you kind of want to mention before we kind of move into your transition phase?
I miss free golf. That's
Ooh,
one thing.
yeah.
I miss free golf. I miss hitting on a simulator for free, because now I'd have to pay for it, and I'm not going to do that on a teacher's salary. So
I feel
Welcome to the
you.
real world.
probably should have appreciated that a little bit more and viewed it as time on a simulator rather than I have to practice.
Hmm.
But
Great
and I
answer.
miss my friends. I miss balling with my bros, and grinding in the 6 a.m. workouts with my girls, and
Hmm.
I miss that. I live alone now, and I hang out with my 12-year-olds, and I see my family way less than I see my students. So
Hmm.
yeah, I really kind of wish I still am working on trying to live in the present, but I don't know if I appreciated it as much as I could have and should have.
Mm.
So
Great answer. I mean, I think
Absolutely.
you spoke for everyone that's going to listen to this. Like, you hit everything on the head with that one.
Yep.
It's also
Even
easier.
now, like I still kind of have to reel myself in, like, wow, I'm almost halfway through my first year of teaching and like I'm already seeing huge strides in my students and that's a majority because of me and things I'm doing. So crazy.
It's
Absolutely.
cool as you kind of move in between
Yeah.
different phases and different acts of life. Like, sometimes it takes a little bit longer mentally to catch up and be where your feet are per se. But
Mhm.
when you do get there, and that's something that was tough for me, was it didn't feel like I was old enough or ready for the space in the time that I was actually in. And but sun's gonna rise tomorrow, whether you like it or not. Like, time doesn't
Yeah.
wait for anybody. So
Right.
it's a weird transition phase, like you were saying. So now moving on to the transition after you first got done playing golf. When did it hit you that your golf career was coming to a close, and what emotions did you feel when it happened?
My very last tournament, my very last round, I started out some tears on the course, and my coach came up to me and she said I was forbidden from crying. And so I promised her I would keep it together until I finished out the round. And as soon as I heard the ball hit the bottom of the cup for the last time in college, man, it was a waterfall,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing could stop that. But I think it was also some relief because I'd pushed my body so hard and for so long, and you know, it just kind of was a release in a way that I did it.
Mm-hmm.
And especially my last semester, I kind of was told that I wasn't going to be able to do student teaching and still play my sport. And that kind of put a little bit of doubt inside of me. But ultimately, my parents said, well, try it. And if it doesn't work, then you can drop one of the two and just figure it out. So ultimately, I pushed to really, be able to do both. And against what other people were saying, I did it and it worked. And I was sleep deprived, but I did it. And I got everything that I wanted to accomplished.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel that. I For me, the senior day activities before our last home game, and it happened to be the last game of the season too. Like, I tried to hold it together, but it was wraps. I was trying so hard. I had to like get myself together like 5 minutes into the game, and the coach yelled at me. He's like, "You stop crying, like hit threes." So I feel you. Coaches got to do that sometimes, but
I got twice, man. I got hit senior day, which wasn't our last game. Our coach had our parents write us like letters, like kind of looking back on our career, and
Oh,
gave it to us before the game. Like, great intentions, right? But then there's
why did you do it
there's
before the
eight of
game?
us just in the locker room just crying. I mean, obviously, super special note from my parents, and I love it. I still got it, but like, not a great time for that. And then obviously the final whistle in the tournament is, similar feel, not different feelings because that was but yeah, those are tough times, man.
no, I also feel you on the it being a release once it's over too. It's something that you don't really think about happening, but as soon as the last second runs out, as soon as the last ball goes into the hole, like, there's just that weight. It's not even like a bad weight, but the weight of everything and all the responsibility and the whole identity of being that student athlete just kind of falls off, and it's weird. But I
Right.
think that's the first time any of our guests have really touched on that experience specifically. So I love that.
Yeah. I also kind of I like what you said, Matthew. You got twice. I also kind of had another moment. Every year at the end of our season, we have a little team meal together, and we get the seniors gifts, and everyone writes letters to them, and there's lots of tears and everything. But I was the lone senior, and so I was really really made to feel special, and man, those gifts, they got me good. My coach especially got me a framed flag that all of my teammates had signed. I need to keep it together, but it really, I almost had a sense of like FOMO already. Like, my teammates are gonna be like going on without me, and like I'm their senior. Like, I need to be there as well, but I need to go on to my next act, and they're gonna still be finishing out their first act.
Now that
Yeah.
you are kind of feeling those emotions, now that you've been retired, what does it feel like to not have your schedule revolve around golf?
Freeing in a way, um, but also I miss the grind, and I'm still grinding, but in a very different way. I'm not, you know, the grind isn't helping my, physical health. Now the grind is benefiting other people and their academics and their mental health. And so now the grind isn't as much about me, but my grind is now about other people. And so I need to still remember to reel myself back and keep enough energy for me to give myself what I need as well.
Yeah, that's a great point.
That was kind of depressing, sorry.
No, I mean that's a great point. I mean, in a position like you are, being a teacher of younger kids, your entire job there is to serve them and like give them what they need, and it's beyond a full-time job, but it's tough to make sure you're intentional about making sure you're filled up so that you're able to continue to pour into those kids and give them the best of what you want to give them too. So it's definitely a tough thing to try and balance, and that difference in what that grind looks like is one of the biggest adjustments that you have to make for sure. So kind of speaking of that, what was one of the biggest adjustments you had to make in retirement as you kind of transitioned out of being a golfer?
The structure. I don't have that structure anymore made for me. And so I have to make that structure now. And, I'm a pretty disciplined person to begin with, but if I don't complete all the things that I need to complete, it's no one else's fault but mine. And now I'm the one that faces all the repercussions instead of someone else. And, I could just show up, I'd not show up to work one day and it would be my fault entirely. But if I didn't show up to practice, I would have other people keeping me accountable. I'm the only one keeping myself accountable now. And I think that's one thing that golf really conditioned me and, really formed me to be ready for the real world, is that I need to be places on time, if not early, and I need to get through things. And if I can't complete something, I'm going to need to get it done eventually, so I might as well just sit down and do it now.
Absolutely. In kind of that transition time, was there someone or something that kind of helped you transition into this next act?
Parents, 100%. Have been very gracious with helping me realize that I can do this whole real world thing and this adult thing. They really help support me in lots of ways. Sometimes my mom on the weekends will make a casserole and divvy it up between my sister and I, and we'll take it on our merry ways, and then we'll have lunch for the week or dinner for the week. And that's made that kind of less stressful of a transition, because now I have someone else also taking care of me when I can't take care of me. And so while I'm still learning to take care of myself 110%.
No, love those parents. Love those parent home cooked meals too. Just something
So
about them just gives you more life than the actual nutrition facts on the back of the box.
Very true.
As you've kind of touched on it a little bit already with the needing to replace structure. How did you try to replace the golf and the athlete part of your identity that was no longer inherently there after you stopped playing?
So I really struggled with this one, and I'm still kind of struggling with trying to keep myself in shape and work out at a consistent rate. I realized I don't like working out, and that because I was forced to do it, I don't like it. And when I'm forced to do something not on my own accord, I don't like it. And so I'm really trying to figure out how to, now not only stay in shape, but, stay active throughout the calendar year. And, I haven't not played a sport since I was like 4. So how do I keep myself active and keep myself loving sports and playing the sports, even though I get home when it's dark at 6 o'clock now and it's cold outside. And so that's still something I'm trying to work through right now and figure out myself, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's a current issue right now in my life.
Yeah, it's something that I feel like every athlete goes through. I mean, it's tough when you're so used to something after years and years and years of doing it for such a long part of your day. I mean, your life literally revolved around it, and you take that away, it's a lot of time and a lot of mental space and capacity and energy to try and replace, and it takes some time. Like, speaking from personal experience, I graduated 2020. It's going to be coming up on 4 years. Goodness, that makes me sound old. My retirement is now a graduate almost. That's crazy. I'm still trying to figure it out, and it's going to look different at each stage of your life too, which is something that isn't really talked about, but it's going to look different, and you have a lot of freedom with that. But it's tough because, like you said, it's on you, and it's something that people, I feel like, feel bad about at the start, maybe a little bit, but you can't, because it happens to everybody, and it's normal. It's okay to have to like try and go through that, because it's a very normal thing.
It's nice knowing I'm in good company with other athletes.
100%. It's weird
And
if someone isn't.
Yeah, and everyone's going to go through it at a different timeline as well, right? Like, some people, it's going to click a little bit earlier. Some people need to figure it out, and it takes a little bit of time to figure out kind of what their routine is, or how they're going to structure it, or how they're going to handle it. And like Keaton said, like, it changes as you change. You get a new job, your structure, everything's going to change again. So like, as you continue to tackle different acts in your life, your schedule and everything's going to continue to change, and you'll have to continue to adapt and evolve. And that's the exciting part. It's also the nerve-wracking part. But kind of looking towards that uncertainty, what kind of characteristics or lessons have you learned from golf that are going to help you challenge that uncertainty moving forward?
I have been told time and time again that I embody a lot of grit and perseverance. And now I don't think I could have pulled that out of myself, but I've been told by multiple coaches, and even, my mom will tell me that I have grit, and that's not something you can really teach, or you can like coach a player to do. They either have it or they don't. And I really have experienced this, or been able to put this in practice in my job, because gosh, that first couple weeks, there were some long hours. I was staying at the school until 9 p.m. trying to figure out what the heck I'm going to teach tomorrow. And, just getting my room set up and working through some behavior problems in my class. And I could have easily given up. And there's a lot of teachers who do choose that path, but I do feel like because I have been able to really fine-tune this grit, I can, put it in practice and use it every single day. And then I can literally grit my teeth when a kid will talk back to me. And I do think, the perseverance of knowing that I did not choose the easiest occupation, but here I am, and I'm determined to make it work, and this is what I feel called to do, and I love every single day, even if I come home in tears some days, that it's ultimately, I know what I'm doing is making a difference, and I know that the kids that are in my classroom, they care for me, and I care for them, and we're all trying to just make each other better, and that's what matters.
Oh, those kids can be brutal sometimes. Got no filter, and anything that comes to their mind, especially as they get older and figure out what things are, just right out the mouth. But
especially those 12-year-olds, man. Whew, brutal.
That's the age where they start to get kind of bold with it too. But it sounds like they have a teacher that they're in good hands with, one that perseveres and has got grit. Like, that's if someone says that about someone, that's a really high compliment. Like, the grit, like, that's something that's not common, and I feel like that probably testifies to the consistency that you said you would describe yourself as a student athlete. Being consistent is not easy. You have to be intentional about being consistent. So I feel like that makes sense that you got a lot of grit and people describe you as that. So moving into your next act, you completed a degree from Valparaiso, and now you're currently working as an elementary school teacher. What got you interested in teaching, and what was appealing to you about becoming a teacher, especially about the age where you're at right now?
So, funny story about the age. When I interviewed for the school that I'm currently at, I told the principal I wanted third or fourth grade. I could maybe do second. I could maybe do fifth. Didn't really want any higher than fifth grade. That's when they get all snobby. And he was like, "Guess what? I'm putting you at sixth." And I was like, "Oh no, oh no, I'm not gonna survive." But he said, "No, you're gonna be fine. Your energy is what they need at that age." And so I said, "I don't know about that," but he said, "Trust me on this." And ultimately, I went in a little bit reluctant, but I trusted him, and I don't think I could do any other grade. I genuinely, truly love sixth grade, and I can tell them do something, and 9 times out of 10, they're going to do it, and they're going to do it well. And I don't have to tie any wet shoelaces. I don't have to zip any coats. I don't have to wipe snotty noses. And I'm a big fan of not doing all 3 of those.
It's true.
Me too.
So, did I answer the question all the way? I feel like I didn't.
About the age, yes. What got you interested in teaching initially?
Okay, yeah, I knew I was missing something. My dad. My dad definitely inspired me to be an educator, and seeing my grandparents on his side go through that and succeed and have really successful careers, and being able to hear about my mom's side and how they had successful educator careers. I kind of feel like I was made to be an educator, and with my personality being fairly outgoing, I've always kind of been told, like, "Hey, you'd be a great teacher." And people in my family, "Hey, you'd be a great teacher." And I'd get the occasional, like, "Oh man, you don't want to be a teacher, you're not going to get paid anything." But, I started to really work with kids. I was able to help out with some sports camps, specifically tennis, a lot. I've given some golf lessons. And really, I realized how much I enjoyed working with them and the art of learning. I love learning. I love seeing the learning. I love doing the learning myself. And I really like to encourage growth mindsets and continual lifelong learning in my kids. And I think the whole part of learning is probably what pulled me in. I like learning new things. I like learning about my kids. I like that they'll come in with these crazy fun facts, and I'll be like, "Oh, I didn't know that." Or right now we're doing holiday presentations, and I learned some really cool things about the Chinese New Year this year. So, they continue to amaze me every single day, and I love that. It keeps it exciting.
Now, before Matthew asks the next question, I feel like that's such a great mindset to have as a teacher. And, well, one, when you have so many people that are experienced and know you and are saying all the same things, like, "Hey, you'd be great at this," and then it actually works out like that, that's a great indicator of where you're supposed to be at. But that mindset of growth and wanting to learn, I feel like it's such a great thing that is shared among the really good teachers, because if a teacher feels like they know everything, then I feel like that's when they start to decline in their ability to teach and their ability to relate, because the kids are going to stay the same age, but the times are going to change. And so if they're not willing to learn and adapt to those times, I feel like it hinders their ability to be a good and effective teacher. So it sounds like you just started out, but you're already on a great path for being an educator.
Thank you.
And I learned stuff from
One of my
Kelsey
favorite
too, and all
things
new
is
slang.
Yes, I have learned some really fun new slang words in the last couple weeks. Did you know preppy now does not mean what it used to mean? When I think of preppy, I think of, like, country club.
Tie your
even
sweater around
golfer.
your neck.
Right, sweater, like plaid, pinstripes. No, preppy now means, like, pink and polka dots and like what I would associate with like more anime type of things. That's what the new preppy means, and I didn't know that.
I did. I
And
wouldn't
I
know
got
that.
called preppy, so I'm not sure how to feel about that.
That's funny.
On a completely opposite subject from 12-year-old slang. Something we often talk about is a struggle after you retire from a lack of competitive outlets. Is there something that you found to replace that competitiveness, or is that still something you're kind of searching for? Is that not something that you need?
Yes, I am competitive through and through, and now that comes out truly as a teacher. I not only compete with my coworkers for the highest quiz and test scores,
Nice.
but if my kids do achieve a certain percentage on whatever test or quiz, they will pick a reward, and often that reward that they want is either food or recess and activity based. Particularly dodgeball is a fan favorite in my class. And do I absolutely beat up on my students in dodgeball? Absolutely, I do. No mercy, none. Like, you're gonna have to learn sometime to either do or die.
I love that.
So competitive, kind of, but like it's a goofy competitive at this point. I'm having fun with it.
I'm picturing Kelsey like Billy Madison and just completely just annihilating kids outside, just picking them off one at a time. If you ever need any help, I'm sure Keaton and I'd be more than welcome to show up for recess.
I'll fly up
Do the
there.
background check. That's it.
100%. Did you teach?
They know if I come in with jeans and tennis shoes on, that something is happening.
Game on.
That's awesome. I bet you're their favorite teacher whenever you lace it up with them. And I mean, that'd be my favorite teacher if she was out there
Absolutely.
trying to get us with dodgeball. Like, that's awesome.
They know there is a time for work and there is a time for play. And if we get our work done, we can do the play.
Great lesson.
And if you work all the time, you're gonna get burned out. That's what I have been hearing my coworkers tell me, and so I also would like to pass that on along to them.
No, that's great. With sports, especially at the Division I level, there are defined goals and direction that everyone works toward that kind of shapes your daily actions and behaviors. After that's over, finding a new guiding direction is one of the most difficult things to kind of replicate in your next act. What are some things that you've done to help you find that new long-term direction? Or if you haven't found it, what are some things that you think will help in that pursuit?
So I also struggled with this one when you sent it to me. Can you give me like an example of what you're thinking? Because I kind of think I know, but I'd like to really know for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So one example for me personally, every part of the year was either in season, off season, or preseason. And so I knew I had specific things I had to do in order to achieve a championship and the in-season goals that myself and my teammates had. And so that in the off season, that meant getting up shots every day. That meant working on whatever ball handling, whatever film study, whatever lifting was required. And then preseason, that was more bonding with your teammates, getting things, trying to be more fine-tuned so you can hit the ground running once practice starts. And then in season, all of our actions were guided toward, okay, what do we need to do in practice in order to prepare for this next game? What do we need to do in game to win this game and make adjustments so that we can overcome this team? What are some things that we need to do to recover in order to maintain ourselves throughout a long season? And after that was over, for me, that was something that helped guide my discipline because I knew what I was working for at the end of the day. I knew if I got 500 shots, I knew if I spent 30 minutes ball handling, if I lifted, I was going to put myself in a position to continue to move forward toward that goal of winning a championship. And so now that that's over, I've had to figure out what that guiding championship, you could say, looks like for me now. And whether that's in a lot of times I have to reevaluate, kind of sit down with myself. What does that look like? Has that changed over the past year? So, for example, one thing that is a long-term goal for me is having an athletic facility that I'm able to run and have awesome like volleyball, basketball tournaments out of. And it's something that I really enjoyed in college, being an intramural director and putting on all those events and being there in that atmosphere as much as possible. So now I'm not doing that right now, but my career that I'm in public accounting is helping me kind of learn the business side of things. And so I can eventually combine my sports knowledge that I've had with the business side of things so I can make something like that work. So that's something that helps guide my daily actions and helps me in my current work life try and figure out what I need to do, what skills I need to acquire, what do I need to be developing in myself personally and professionally in order to continue to move toward that eventual goal. So that's a more detailed answer than you might have been thinking, but that's kind of where that question is based out of.
So, okay. As you were talking, I kind of realized this is probably where one of the holes in my life is. I have had a guiding direction in my life for as long as I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
Middle school, I wanted to do this and this and this in high school, and my end goal was to get above a 4.0 GPA, and then I wanted to go to a small school and play a sport. For a while, it was I wanted to go to Manchester to play tennis, and then that shifted just a little bit. Um, but then I graduated. I guess I'm kind of here like, okay, what's next? I guess I don't really have a guiding direction right now. I mean, I do a lot for my kids. Like my money either goes towards food for myself or something for my kids. And, I guess I call them my kids because they feel like my kids. They're not just students to me. They're part of my life and part of my world. And so if I had a guiding direction, it would be them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've had quite a few kids come to me with really personal issues and been willing to share that with me. And so that's kind of been my goal, to make them feel heard and help them kind of navigate big emotions and really big things that I even haven't had to go through. Um, but I guess I don't really have a guiding direction right now.
Just from
I think
being
I'll probably have to do some thinking about that.
Well, just from being able to have conversations, obviously, and listening to you talk, I think you do have kind of a guiding direction. And like you said, it's your kids, right? And I think it's in a sense it's personalized to each kid. I've heard you talk about, little Timmy, his science scores have jumped from here to here, or if we can get Keaton to get his reading scores from here to here, then like we've done massive jumps. Or Matthew needs help in his personal life. I want to be sure that I'm there for him. And I think you do, and that I think that's your
I
guiding.
probably do. I just
It is.
couldn't put my finger.
And you've never thought about it, right? Because it's not something that you've ever had to think about. Your next step was always so clear cut in X, Y, Z. Now it's also not a stat. It's not a figure, right? It's not necessarily something that's always obtainable because you're always trying to get these kids better. There's no ceiling for these kids. There's no like, oh, once I get them to, a test score of 84, then good job, we don't have to work anymore. Like that's not how that works,
Yeah.
right? You got to continue to help these kids evolve and improve and find themselves and do all that kind of stuff. And I could be wrong, but I think that that's your guiding movement is trying to help those kids in any way that you can.
You're probably right. I think, yeah, professionally for sure. And I kind of am trying to figure out where my professional, personal life, that split is, because they bleed into each other a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I would say maybe I was trying to figure out a personal guiding direction, because right now a lot of my energy is going to my professional guiding direction. And, maybe that's okay for now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll probably need to do some thinking about a personal guiding direction.
No, that's completely fair. That's something that I obviously have gone through and still am going through. And I know Matthew, I'm sure he can attest to the same thing. But one thing, I read a book called The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek after I graduated. And one of the points and concepts of it is, unlike our first act where we had defined seasons and defined championships that we were kind of working toward, Now we're in a phase of life where there is no finish line. There's no championship for being teacher. There's no championship for being an auditor. There's no well, Matthew's a little bit different because he is he does have a championship.
He's cheating.
I do
But
cheat.
But for someone like you as a teacher, the winning is just continuing to play the game of being an educator and continuing to have an impact on all these kids' lives as they continue to come into your classroom and grow and improve both as a student and as a person. So like it's a shift that makes it look different. And I think Matthew kind of made that connection with you. Like it might not have seemed like you had a guiding direction in terms of like a championship of like, I'm going to win the National Teachers Association Championship Series or whatever, something like that. But it's being in that position to continue to be a great educator throughout the years as you continue to grow.
Say it louder for those in the back, Keto.
It's a big mindset shift, though. And it's tough because a lot of times you don't realize you need to make it, or you don't know that it's something that is even a thing. So I think you're in a good spot.
Thank you.
Also,
I hope I am.
Also, the National Teachers Association Championship be a thing. Don't know what it is, but it should be a thing.
Just have the teachers play dodgeball.
That's
That's the championship.
that'd be awesome. Oh,
I guess I did. Sorry, my last thing I want to
you're
say
fine.
about that, but like I had been talking to a couple veteran teachers about like I just feel like once I teach something, it's done, and like I'm continuing. Oh, the prep, it never ends. And once I teach something, it's like, okay, well, what was that for? Like I can't see a direct, for sure, track that like that was worth it and that had an impact on students. But it's teaching is weird. You know, you don't see direct results right away like you would if you're lifting and you lift for 2 weeks. You might see a little bit of a pop of muscle. But you don't see that growth right away. It's very gradual in them.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, then a lot of times, whenever you think of like the best teachers you had in middle school, high school, you often don't remember how great of a lesson they taught. Even
True.
though a lot of teachers, their mark is being able to communicate and teach really well and having some light bulbs go off in your head. But a lot of times you remember them for how great of a teacher and person that they were in order for you to be able to go to them and all the lessons that they taught you outside of the actual textbook. So I think and you, like you said, you've been able to be someone like that for your students, and they've come to you with some stuff that 12-year-olds and pre-adolescent teens go through. Like, it's crazy. So being able to be someone like that, I feel like is something that has impact, even if it's not seen or measurable, or they don't even know until kind of years down the line too.
Right.
So just something to keep in mind.
Speaking of your kiddos, let's say one of them walks in tomorrow, walks straight up to you, looks you in the face, and goes, "Miss Ike, what's one piece of advice that you would give me if I want to follow in your footsteps?"
And they would know the answer because I have told them time and time again, you have to work hard, work until the thing you want is achieved. If you want it bad enough, you're going to work as much as it takes to get to that point. And they also know that they need to believe in themselves. Just today, I got them each a little Christmas gift. It's a keychain, and I customized them. Each of them said their first name, and it said, "You are a star." It's in the shape of a star. "Keep on shining." And it said, "Love, Miss Eichenauer." And I told them when I gave them to this, I said, you need to believe that you are worth it and that you are a star and you can achieve everything that you set your mind to. And it was really sweet because when they had their presentations today, a lot of them, I saw them clutching this in their hand as they're presenting. And later I was like, why were you holding it? And they said, because it gave me confidence and strength as I was presenting because I was nervous. And when I tell you, whoa, that hit me like a truck. These things were $3. And I was like, you guys, like, wow. So I do think that they know what I would tell them, and I remind them daily that you need to believe in yourself, but you need to work hard to achieve what you want to achieve.
It's great advice. Simple, but
Yep.
doesn't get much better than that.
Yep.
Well, it just sounds like even that example, that's something that goes beyond any sort of textbook, any sort of lesson. And it's funny because like the things that Matthew and I are saying and like the advice, not the advice, but like our perspectives on things, like we ask another question and then you just give an example of something we just talked about, like just continuing to back it up. And it's really cool to kind of hear. Another thing that I think is safe to say that everyone wants to be successful in their life to varying degrees. It's a great ambition to have, but it's sometimes hard to define what success looks like at different stages of our lives. How did your definition of success change after your career as a player and now as a teacher?
I think this kind of goes along with what we were talking about earlier, and like your guiding direction. I think that my success is building that relationship with students, and when they come talk to me, when they feel like they have a problem, or when they feel comfortable enough to say, hey, Miss Ike, like I really think I need a couple minutes in the hallway to cool down before I come into your classroom. That way I can stay respectful to you and everyone else. And that's something that I really emphasize, that if you're not ready to be in a space, you need to get yourself ready. Do that in whatever way you need, and if as long as you communicate that, like, we're good. And I really have seen a lot of growth in that they are respecting not only myself and others more, but they're respecting themselves more. And I guess we just kind of keep like hitting the nail on the head. Like I teach them things that they need to believe in themselves, because often a lot of them don't have someone to believe in them. And the fact that I am a consistent adult in their life, it's a lot of pressure. But when I see that the things that I'm saying are finally sticking, and then when I hear one repeat it in the hallway, like, hey, remember Miss Ike, she said this. She said that we need to walk with a purpose, and we need to walk fast but not run, and just like, you know, those silly things that like they hear me say, and then I hear them say it. That's a silly example, but or they'll say, wait, we need to have a growth mindset, and I'll be like, oh, I told them that a couple of weeks into school, like I told them that, and I hear them repeat the things that I say. That's kind of my success that I feel.
Absolutely. It's those little things, right? Like you mentioned, just hearing a little blurb here, hearing a blurb there. And I challenge you to continue to remind yourself of that. Like, I know it hits you when it happens, but just knowing and hearing those little things are that's proof and evidence that you are having an impact, right? So as we talked about earlier, it's not always clear cut. So I'll challenge you to continue to kind of remember that as you continue finish out this semester, and obviously a long career of being a teacher. But now, kind of that you're in this new act, what's been your favorite part about life that maybe you weren't able to experience when you were a golfer?
I think I'm kind of just enjoying nature in my adulthood a little bit more, and I'm actually, you know, as a student athlete, you're go, 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 and I'm finally able to kind of just take a beat for a second and really recognize where I'm at in the space I'm in. And I'm living on this beautiful lake, and I get to see some sunrises and sunsets, and it tickles me kind of how I'm so blessed to be in this space and being on this earth that has gorgeous sunrises and sunsets, and kind of just reflecting and getting to see how far I've come, and kind of that I did make it. I was able to be an athlete, I was able to be a student, and I got to my end goal. So now I'm kind of searching of where to go next, personally, but kind of reflecting on that I made it, you know?
Mm-hmm. No,
Probably wasn't as elaborate as you were hoping, sorry.
It's good.
no, I love that. I definitely can relate to enjoying nature more. It's like, nature's crazy. Nature is unbelievable. Like, there's so many amazing things in just nature, and it's so cool to be able to, like you said, take a beat and be able to kind of just enjoy it, because it's something that is truly a blessing, and not everybody gets to have it be like that and be aware of like really cool nature and go on trips. And it's like my girlfriend and I, we took a trip out to Utah and went to Zion National Park, and it was unbelievable. And it's something that neither of us had been able to do before, because something was always in the off season or preseason or in season. So it's a simple answer, like you saying, but it's a great answer. So now, what's something you're looking forward to as you continue to work towards success in your next act?
I'm looking forward to meeting more students, and I'm hoping that when my first class graduates from my classroom, that they will come back and they'll remember me, and they'll, maybe not all of them will appreciate my tough love all the time and my high expectations, because, some of them don't want to work hard, and I don't let them off the hook. But I'm hoping that in the future that I will really make some incredible impacts and maybe keep a couple people going longer than they thought they could, and raise some reading levels, and keep people confident in themselves and make them successful. It's the kids for me. That's why I wake up every morning, and that's kind of also circling back to why I knew I wanted to be a teacher. There was a moment where I thought, could I be a pharmacist? Do I want to go the medical route like my mom and my sister? But I just knew I was going to hate myself on Monday mornings. But now I actually look forward to collaborating with my coworkers and seeing my kids come in saying good morning as I'm still half asleep with my coffee in my hand. And they come in full of energy, and I just absorb as much of their youth as I can.
That's awesome. So now obviously you have the privilege to kind of look back on everything that you've gone through. Knowing what you know now, what's something that you would tell yourself as you came to the end of your playing career and as you're transitioning into your current act?
Man, you guys got some good questions here at the end. I think I would just tell myself to have grace with myself and extend myself the patience that I deserve as I'm still learning to transition into this period of life, and give myself a little pat on the back because I did it. And I played a Division I sport, and no shade to my family, but no one else did that. So that's a
shade.
little something extra. And I mean, in my extended family,
yeah,
I think.
In my extended family, I only had one other relative play a Division I sport, and so I kind of feel I didn't know if I could do it. I truly didn't know if I was going to be able to do it, and there were times that I was wondering if I should just transfer back to Manchester because it'd be easier. But I didn't, and I did it. So then I'm proud of myself, so I'd give myself a little pat on the back.
Yeah, no, that's very important. And it leads right into the portion where we acknowledge our guest. This is the first time I've met you. Matthew knows you a little bit more, so I'll let him take the floor on it a little bit. But from our conversation just this hour, I want to acknowledge you for not taking the easy route, taking the tough route with both a Division I student athlete experience and also being an educator for 12-year-olds in 6th grade. Like you said, there's a lot. It's a tough age, but it sounds like you're in it for all of the right reasons, and you've already seen a lot of that impact already in first semester. So can you imagine what countless more semesters it's going to look like and the impact you're going to make there? And also, one thing that I want to acknowledge you for is your consistency that you were kind of known for as a player. It sounds like you've brought that exact same intention and tenacity to being a consistent person for those kids. And that's, from my experience, having someone believe in you and give you that confidence that's not you in order to kind of help you get there before you believe in yourself is so huge. So I just wanted to acknowledge you for that right off the bat before Matthew does.
Thank you.
Keto said a lot of nice words. Normally, this is the part as your future brother-in-law where I got to humble you, but since you're the guest on our,
Figured that was going to be coming.
since you're the guest today, I guess I'll take it easy. But I just, the big thing that always sticks out to me is how much you care about those kids, and just kind of the way you go about your day. And like you said, whether you like it or not, or whether you mean to or not, your life now does revolve around those kids. And it means more to them than they'll ever tell you. I think the three of us can all look back on teachers or professors that played a significant part in us learning and growing. And I think the impact that you can have and will have on these kids. So I just want to acknowledge you for being a great role model and a great, kind of resource for these kids. And obviously you're going to continue to do big things.
Wow, those are some of the nicest things you've ever said to me.
Don't get used to it.
All right. So, Kelsey, the final two questions that we ask every single one of our guests. The first one is, what does a life well lived mean to you?
This is going to be very teacher of me, but touch as many lives in the best way possible as I can, and make the most imprint on their hearts and their minds as I can. And then hopefully they'll come back and recognize me as well. But as long as they remember me and they think back and, wow, that was a good 6th grade teacher, that's recognition enough. I don't have to know about it. As long as they carry that on with them, that's good enough for me.
Our last one here is, when it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
As a positive influence and as someone who didn't let a student take the easy way out. Gotta put in the hard work, and the hard work will show eventually, and a lot of kids may not want to put in the hard work right away. They might not see the results right away, but letting them figure that out and pushing them to do their best is how I'd like to be remembered.
I love that. That's
Absolutely.
awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure talking with Kelsey today. If you're listening so far, thank you so much. If you aren't listening, you aren't going to hear this anyway. But go subscribe, go re-listen to this episode. I had a lot of fun talking with Kelsey, and there's going to be a lot of really great things you can go back and listen to and take from it. Go follow us on social media, YouTube. Keep running up the next act drafts that we've been putting out. We got some more of those coming out. They're a lot of fun, and we're going to be putting out a lot of good clips from Kelsey's wisdom that everybody can kind of take and run with too. But Matthew, is there anything else we need to touch on?
Go Beacons.
Go Beacons.
Nice hat, by the way.
That is looking sweet. Well, we hope everyone has a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. Let's close out 2023 strong, and I can't believe I'm saying this, hit the ground running with 2024. Kelsey, thank you so much again for joining us, and until next time, let's make sure the best is still yet to come.